The girl slipped a coin into the vending machine, and soon a bottle of cola dropped down. But just as she reached for it, a strange man behind her snatched it away and drank it all in front of her. Instead of getting angry at this sudden offense, the girl obediently accepted the empty bottle. Even when she stepped outside, her face was still lit with a joyful smile. The reason was that last night, Su-jin had come to the convenience store to buy a cola. But after stepping out, she realized she had forgotten to take it. So she returned to the store entrance only to find a scruffy man blocking her way. Su-jin mistakenly thought he had taken her cola, so she snatched it back right in front of him and drank it all in one go. She even tossed the empty bottle back at him as a challenge before turning away with a flourish, leaving the man utterly dumbfounded. But when she got on the bus, she realized her wallet was missing, so she had no choice but to return to the store. The clerk saw her and handed over both her wallet and the forgotten cola. Only then did Su-jin realize how rude her earlier behavior had been, and she rushed outside to return the cola to that stranger. But the man was already gone. What she thought was just a fleeting, embarrassing encounter turned out to be only the beginning of their fate. As the daughter of a real estate owner, her father often forced her to accompany him on work inspections. Though she usually despised these outings, this very trip would unexpectedly change her life. In a casual glance, Su-jin saw the same man from last night, tools from the construction site hanging off his body. Though their worlds were far apart, she couldn't help stealing another look as his figure walked away. For some reason, she develops a strong interest in this man. Even in her daily life afterwards, this scruffy figure keeps inexplicably appearing before her eyes. One day, Su-jin's project needed a temporary worker, so she called her father for help, and he quickly found someone suitable. When the elevator doors opened, she was shocked to see that familiar face once again. Embarrassed by the memory of her arrogance, Su-jin turned away and hid in her office. Yet before long, she peeked out again, watching him discuss wall designs with her colleagues. To her surprise, even his simplest movements left her captivated. His strong and powerful figure quickly drew her in. Perhaps seeking a chance to apologize, Su-jin went to the vending machine and bought another cola. But just as she was about to reach for it, the man behind her snatched it away, drank it all in front of her, and then let out a loud burp to answer her challenge from that night. And for all of this, she could only obediently take the empty bottle, and even as she stepped outside, her face was still glowing with a radiant smile. But as she was about to catch a taxi home, a motorcycle sped by and snatched her bag. Chul-soo, who's ahead, sees it all happen. He calmly opened his car door, sending the thief flying several meters into the air. This unexpected act of heroism instantly brought the two of them closer. As they both watched the thief flee in disgrace, they couldn't help but laugh. Then, under Su-jin's gaze, Chul-soo carefully repaired the strap of her torn bag. Because his car window had shattered in the struggle, he removed all the glass and used a makeshift device to secure Su-jin in the passenger seat. Even as the wind roared wildly through the car, she held onto the armrest and kept her balance. The strange sight drew curious looks from other drivers, but the two of them simply enjoyed the breeze together. To Chul-soo's surprise, Su-jin showed none of the arrogance he had expected and even put on his ugly construction helmet. And in Su-jin's eyes, though this man spoke little, he gave her an unshakable sense of safety. The very next day, she dressed up beautifully, longing for another meeting with Chul-soo. But at her office, she was told that her father had already reassigned him elsewhere. Su-jin's heart sank with disappointment, and she longed to see him again. That evening, she dragged her friends past the place where Chul-soo usually ate. As the women passed by, all the workers stared, except Chul-soo, who remained focused on his work. When one of the girls turned back, she saw his indifference to beauty and quietly vowed to stay by his side for life.
뭐야? 아는 사람들이야? 여기 계시더라고요.
With just a single glance from Chul-soo, his co-workers cleared space for them. Though the other table is lively with drinks and laughter, the two of them remain quiet because under the table, their hands are already joined, pledging their lives to each other. When the crowd finally dispersed, Chul-soo poured Su-jin a drink and offered his own unique confession.
이거 마시면 우리 사귀는 거다.
안 마시면?
별일 없는 거지. 죽을 때까지.
As the strong liquor flowed down her throat, they completely confirmed their love for each other. From then on, Chul-soo started caring more about his appearance, and they lived happily like any couple. He whispered sweet words in her ear and taught her how to play baseball, filling their lives with joy. They embraced on busy street corners, sharing their secrets in whispers. To build a better future together, Chul-soo even registered for the architect's exam. But Su-jin's unusual behavior didn't escape her father's notice, and he insisted on meeting her boyfriend. But Chul-soo quickly refuses. Perhaps due to his status, he doesn't have the courage to face Su-jin's parents yet. Yet if they wanted to marry, they had to overcome this barrier. No matter how Su-jin tries to persuade him, Chul-soo can't accept his own inadequacy. Even when Su-jin stands before him with tear-reddened eyes, he remains unmoved. So she tricked him into coming to dinner, where her parents appeared. The moment Chul-soo sees the boss, he avoids eye contact. If Su-jin hadn't held his hand, he might have fled the awkward scene. Seeing the reluctance on Chul-soo's face, Su-jin sadly gets up to go to the restroom. Not noticing the stiff expression on her father's face, he never expected the man his daughter is so infatuated with to be his own employee. Unable to accept that his daughter loved someone with no future, he demanded Chul-soo leave her forever, and in anger, fired him on the spot. However, at that very moment, Chul-soo heard Su-jin's name being called from outside the door. He rushed out in panic, only to find Su-jin lying on the ground, completely motionless. It turned out that Su-jin mistakenly believed Chul-soo did not want to marry her, so after leaving the restroom, she walked alone into the heavy rain, only to suddenly collapse for no apparent reason. Chul-soo immediately picked her up and ran desperately toward the hospital. Seeing this scene, Su-jin's father froze in place for a long time, a trace of surprise flashing in his eyes, and in that moment, he silently accepted this man in his heart. Fortunately, after an examination, it was revealed that Su-jin only had a bit of anemia and nothing serious. When she opened her eyes and saw Chul-soo, she could no longer hold back her longing and threw herself into his arms. Mr. Kim knew he could no longer stop the two who were deeply in love. Soon after, Su-jin and Chul-soo stepped into marriage. Not long after, Chul-soo successfully obtained his architect's license, and with Su-jin's father's support, his career began to flourish. Everything seemed to move in a positive direction. But fate was far from as kind as they imagined. Gradually, Su-jin was horrified to find that she often forgot the way home. When she mentioned it to her friends, they even joked that perhaps her nights were too exhausting, not realizing she was stepping closer and closer toward a dark abyss. That night, upon returning home, she once again forgot everything. She nervously opened the door, but could not remember the decorations before her eyes, until Chul-soo walked out of the room, and she finally recalled everything. In order to uncover the cause of her frequent memory loss, she secretly went to the hospital without telling Chul-soo. After a scan, the doctor finally revealed her diagnosis.
뭐랄까, 수진 씨는 알츠하이머 병에 걸렸어.
To Su-jin's shock, even though she was only 27, she had developed an illness usually seen in the elderly. Although medication could slow its progression, the doctor advised her to stop working, warning that soon she would forget everything and gradually lose her sense of self. Her ability to live independently would vanish, and her memories would fade away. For someone basking in happiness, this was a devastating blow. But even so, she chose to bear the pain alone and cherish her time with Chul-soo even more. So that evening, Su-jin told Chul-soo she wanted to quit her job and focus on staying home with him. No matter what decision she made, Chul-soo always supported her. This love had long flowed through their veins and deep into their hearts. Although they still played card games like before, the warmer and happier these moments were, the more Su-jin sadly hid in corners to cry. To keep from forgetting the one she loved most, she drew Chul-soo's face in her notebook every day and gazed at it for a long time. Though she later quit her job to stay at home, she still watched Chul-soo with reluctance every time he left for work. From that moment on, she treated each day as if it were her last with him. One afternoon, while eating with his co-workers, Chul-soo opened the lunchbox Su-jin had prepared for him, only to find it filled entirely with rice. Thinking of her unusual behavior, unease grew in his heart, and he rushed to the hospital she often visited. There, he finally learned the truth of her condition from the doctor. Unable to accept such torment for his wife, he slammed the doctor against the wall in anger. It was only when a nurse rushed over and explained that the doctor's own wife had died from the same illness that Chul-soo slowly calmed down. Meanwhile, Su-jin suddenly stopped walking on the street. She stared blankly around, unable to remember what she was supposed to do. Even when she pulled out her phone, she didn't know how to use it, and finally curled up on a street corner in tears. A passing police officer helped her up, But no matter what he asked, Su-jin couldn't answer. She had forgotten where her home was, even forgotten who she was. Until she saw the figure of her first love in the crowd, and she told the officer that this was her husband. Unexpectedly, Young Min expressed his long-held wish to reunite with her. Su-jin was confused. Hadn't they been together every day? But the moment she voiced her doubt, she once again fell into silence. Moments later, she realized how absurd her actions had been, as her memory returned. Yet the illness continued to drag her into despair again and again. That night, she went to the place where she once played baseball with Chul-soo. But to her surprise, he also arrived at the stadium at that very moment. The moment they saw each other again, a silent sorrow was written on both their faces. The cruelty of fate was forcing them to face unbearable hardship, yet even so, they refused to bow their heads to destiny.
다 나한테 맡겨. 응? 내가 네 기억이고 네 마음이야. 알았지? 뚝.
From then on, Chul-soo recorded every little detail of their lives each day and stuck those notes everywhere within sight. And Su-jin flipped through their photo albums every day, trying to etch their faces into her memory. Although Chul-soo reminded her of everything around her daily, within the blink of an eye, she would forget it all again. Even on the day of their wedding anniversary, she stared curiously at the date marked in red. At that moment, a knock came at the door. When she opened it, it wasn't Chul-soo's face, but Su-jin's eyes still lit up with joy. She had mistaken Young Min for Chul-soo once more. Just as Young Min tried to take advantage of the situation, Chul-soo rushed back home. Seeing the man about to touch his wife, he knocked him to the ground with one punch. But Su-jin clung to him from behind, holding him back, and in the struggle, a deep scratch appeared on his shoulder. He ignored the pain and dragged Young Min outside, beating him furiously. Su-jin stood silently at the doorway, staring at everything before her. Something seemed to stir in her memory, but she couldn't quite grasp it. Just as things were about to turn deadly, Su-jin's father appeared. And in that moment, Su-jin collapsed to the ground. To protect Chul-soo's future, Mr. Kim decided to take his daughter away. But Chul-soo stubbornly refused, insisting she stay with him. While they argued, Su-jin suddenly appeared behind them, her condition having worsened so much that she had lost control of herself. Seeing this, Chul-soo hurriedly pulled her inside, covering her feet with his own clothes. Even in such moments, he cared for her dignity above all. Although he eventually convinced his father-in-law, Chul-soo still often wept alone at night. But no matter what, Chul-soo never gave up on the woman he loved. He continued to help her remember their life together, until one morning, just as he was about to leave for work, she suddenly called him by the wrong name.
영미 씨, 사랑해.
나도.
When he opened the door, all the grief he had been holding inside finally burst out. Back inside, Su-jin stared at the notes on the wall, her eyes finally settling on their photo together. And in that moment, she remembered everything. Thinking back to the name she had just spoken, she couldn't accept that she had hurt the man she loved so deeply. By the time Chul-soo came home that night, Su-jin was gone, leaving behind only their empty home and a farewell letter.
나 때문에 울게 하기 싫었는데 당신 슬퍼하는 모습 보기 싫은데 철수 씨, 사랑하는 철수 씨, 제발 오해하지 마세요. 난 당신만을 사랑해요. 당신만을 생각해요. 당신만을 기억해요. 할 말이 너무 많은데 내 마음 다 보여주고 싶은데 나 김수진은 당신 최철수만을 사랑합니다. 이것만 기억이 또 사라질까봐 두려워요. 내 마음 다 얘기하고 싶은데 다 보여주고 싶은데 사랑해요. 미안해요. 마지막으로 부탁이 하나 있어요. 우리 아버지를 꼭 만나주세요.
When Chul-soo went to her father's office, he was met with a divorce agreement. Without hesitation, he tore it to pieces. Even though his father-in-law urged him to focus on his career and future, to Chul-soo, life held no meaning without Su-jin. During the days of her absence, Chul-soo spent every moment staring blankly at their photo, as if a piece of his soul was missing. At the baseball stadium, he swung desperately at the incoming balls, because in those moments, he could see her sweet silhouette. Yet it was nothing more than an illusion. But their story was far from over. One day, when Chul-soo returned home, he found a letter written by Su-jin, one she had prepared during a rare moment of clarity. She was grateful she could still remember everything, but in despair she admitted it might be her last chance to write to him. In the letter, she poured out everything she still held in her mind, from their awkward first encounter to their wedding day, from their joys and sorrows to the despair and pain of being consumed by illness. All of it felt engraved in her memory, yet at any moment, it could vanish like dust in the wind. Following the address on the envelope, Chul-soo arrived at a seaside hospital. With the doctor's guidance, he entered Su-jin's room. The decorations were simple, with only one photo of the two of them together. As he pushed past the curtain, he saw once more the woman he loved so deeply. At that moment, Su-jin was sketching in a notebook, and every page was filled with Chul-soo's face. But every drawing proved that her memory was gradually fading, and it also showed that her illness was steadily worsening.
모르시겠어요?
누구시죠?
처음 뵙겠습니다. 최철수라고 합니다.
My love for you is witnessed by the heavens and the earth, illuminated by the sun and the moon. If an eraser exists in your memory that wipes away our story every midnight, then I would become 1,000 pencils, writing our happiness again and again before dawn, until the seas run dry and the world grows old.